What's going on, investors? Des here from Investments. Today is May 7th, 2023. And we're going to look at some stock charts. We're going to look at some crypto charts. We're going to take a look at the market, see what's going on. So I'm happy to have you here if you are watching in the live or if you're watching after the fact. I appreciate you being here, and I would appreciate a thumbs up or subscribe if you find value in this content. But let's get into taking a look at these markets, see where we think we're at. Try to do these streams 3 times a day. And of course, we are going to start with Mama Bitcoin and see what we think is happening. I have a couple different variations of this chart lined up to show you today, as well as I want to show the Bitcoin dominance chart to see where we're standing. We were charting this as a ascending wedge pattern, ascending wedge, which is typically a bearish pattern, right? So signaling that we might be in a short-term topping out, right? So what we could potentially see, and realistically we might not be fully broken down to the downside. It might have this just charted that way. You might get a run up and run up before dropping down, but it looks like it is already starting to break down right here at these levels. I think your first stop is at 27.8, this white line that we have drawn, and there's not much there for support, to be honest. I should be drawing that up a little bit, and we're at that support right now. So not too strong. Our next little stop is our local high, our local lows of 27,000, give or take some change. And again, there is not much strength there. I don't think you really have anything until around 25.3. So that is the level we're looking for, and I will draw that on the chart. I will draw this as either playing in here or dropping down before continuing higher, and that all depends on either one of these levels holding. So far we've been pretty range bound between this 29.7 level and this 25,000 level, at least for the past couple months, since March 16th, I would say, is when we broke to the upside. And you know, I think this is a short-term pullback off this pretty good run. Let's do from here to here. I mean, we're already up 100%, give or take. So 100% over 170 days. So I think a little bit of a pullback here would not be too crazy, would be kind of expected, to be honest. And I think nice pullback would be to 25,000 before springing off there, testing that level as support and continuing higher. I don't think that we're going to drop below that $25,000 level, but we need to see what this looks like when we start to get to that level. Realistically, the fundamentals for owning things like Bitcoin and crypto have never been stronger, never. In fact, with all the banks collapsing, I think it's going to start pushing more and more people into things like this. And I'm curious to start looking at gold and see if, typically when people get scared of the financial markets, what they do is they start to go into gold, right? That's just what the older generation has done in the past. And what do I look at for that? What is the ticker? Let's look at that. GC. Yeah, we'll look at this later. Anyways, let's switch on over to our alternative view and see what we had here. So for this view, we had a nice parallel channel going for Bitcoin, but it wasn't really fitting this. So this is why I'm showing this secondary, because I didn't really like this. You had this big outlier as you dropped out, plus you weren't really hitting this top except for these candle wicks. So I didn't like this idea too much, but it's cool to have different not even opposing, but just different looks on the market, right? And it's one of the cool things with TradingView is you can have multiple instances of the same coin and maybe see something different, and it helps to have a fresh chart sometimes. Anyways, drew this as a parallel channel, and you've just been riding this bottom line, and that's not something you want to do, right? However, if you did find support here, you got a good amount of room to the upside before you do anything, right? Like even to the heart line, you're talking about 31,000. To the top of the channel, you're talking about 32.8 from about where we're at right now. So if this is a valid parallel channel, we'd be in the bottom of it and potentially breaking down to the downside, which would be a negative again, or finding support and continuing on. Personally, I think short term we're looking bearish, long term we're looking bullish. Just my outlook. Anyways, let's move on to Bitcoin dominance, because as we see Bitcoin kind of lollygagging, not doing nothing, put it in lower highs, not really lower lows yet, so that's at least a positive. But as you would expect Bitcoin dominance to be dropping, right? So let's see what Bitcoin dominance is doing, and it's actually doing the opposite. It looks to be pumping, and this makes me feel that the liquidity is just not in these markets. It's, I believe, getting harder and harder to buy altcoins. A lot of the on-ramps are very limited on which coins you can do. However, I just looked into Binance US and there was like 127 coins that we have access to. It's just getting funds over to that, and hopefully that continues on, because Bittrex closed, Poloniex closed, all the older ones closed to US customers. So it's getting harder and harder. What do I think is happening here with the Bitcoin dominance? Why is it going up while Bitcoin is remaining flat and or dropping? Well, I think much of the liquidity is being absorbed by Bitcoin, because people want these big name coins. They want the Bitcoin, they want the Ethereum and the Litecoin and the BNB. These are the big babies that people want. So it makes total sense that market cap dominance would continue on higher. And let's see how it's affecting things like Litecoin versus BTC. Litecoin versus BTC is nearing local lows, right? Like you're still dropping. So as that Bitcoin dominance is increasing, all those BTC pairs are most likely dropping unless they're performing really well compared to Bitcoin, which is doing nothing. So let's see. I don't have a lot of these on here. I just wanted to see, let's see if we can find a coin that's doing well and bucking the trend. Not looking at either one of these. Come on, something real. Ethereum, BTC. Curious to see what this looks like. What a different chart, hey? Everything at all-time lows versus BTC, and Ethereum looking like it has just been flatlined, right? Wow, a lot different. Interesting. Anyways, let's continue on, do some other investigation. Ethereum continuing to starting to flatline a little bit, starting to lose a little bit of momentum. MACD is showing the momentum is a little bit negative, but marginal, right? RSI is reset. I think a lot of these are just kind of waiting for Bitcoin to do anything at this point, which it's not. It's something that is going to drive this market, so we need it to kind of paint the picture for everyone and set the ground for everyone, right? However, as I've been saying, I do think this run is going to positively affect things like Ethereum, Bitcoin, Binance, and Litecoin. I think these are the big players in the space, and I believe that they are going to do well on this rally. So again, short term, I mean, you could be looking like a pullback to 1711 if Bitcoin decides to start dropping, even down to 1405. Those are the levels realistically that you could see, depending on how far Bitcoin drops and how much does it take the altcoin market with it. I don't think there's a lot of liquidity in the altcoin market, right? So I think as Bitcoin starts to just tank, all these other ones are just going to tank as well. All right, we will look at Litecoin. I'm going to blow through this because I preach the same thing every single time. You got this big upsloping green demand line that's dating back to April 2017, and every time it's touched there, you just had a massive run to the upside, right? One of the smallest ones being a 550% run to $145. I'm getting tired of saying this every single time. I just think we just touched this back in November of last year and have since found support at higher levels, pulling back to the 200 moving day average. I don't know, guys. This one I think is just going to be one of the big winners of this rally, as well as BNB, which to me this chart looks pretty damn bullish. Like, you have just higher lows every step of the way. You're starting to build higher highs as well. Like, this looks poised for a breakout to the upside, and I think BNB has just a lot of demand, whether it be from BNB Smart Chain or what's the other thing? I mean, you can use it for trading fees as well, but BNB and Matic, I think are some of the big boys in this space, and it's, I think, due to usage, right? BNB, Ethereum, and Matic are pretty heavily used, and I think as a coin has more utility, you start to, you know, stair step your way higher, because there's that absorption of the liquidity into those markets, where that supply just gets eaten and eaten because people need it, and on top of that, people are seeing it at bargain levels, so they're buying it up, right? All right, let's continue on with our watch list. I did drop this in the comments, but if you do have requests, please drop them for me. I would be happy to take a look at them. What are we looking at? Before I do this, I do want to say I am starting this Binance US, trying to get all up to date on all the US available altcoins, right? So we're probably gonna have like a marathon stream where we go through these and look at some of them and just spacebar through them and just see what we can see. You know, we'll just see if we have any that are looking bullish, like double bottom. Look at what happened last time we had a double bottom. Nice rally, although it does look like you're dropping down. Yeah, so we're just gonna spacebar through it. Anyways, that stream is coming. Let's get to our watch list that we're looking at, and we'll kind of blow through some of these cryptos, because there's not a lot happening in crypto. Everything's turned into the negative, it seems like. ICX falling apart. To be honest, we were expecting a nice reversal at the 618. Happened last time, but that rally fell short of the previous local high, and since then you're putting in a bit of a double top and falling apart, breaking this 27-cent support, which was pretty critical that you hold. You're also breaking below this 26-cent support. What is that? Just trying to see what the local, I think our next line is right where we're at, to be honest, just due to debatable. Support being here, support being there. You definitely want to see a reversal here, otherwise you are falling and falling to about 20 cents most likely. 23 cents first, then 20 cents. Yeah, 23 cents looks like it does have a nice floor. We'll put a line there. Okay, I'm drawing too many lines. Let's move on. All I'm saying is this one looks like it's falling apart. T-Fuel also kind of falling apart here. Deleting our old ideas because they are now invalidated by how far this has fallen apart. Our fib is deleted. Pulling back to this white line at 4 cents would make the most sense to me. Just put in a retest of that level. That would make the most sense. Looks like it's on path to do that as well. Falling below the 200-day. Negative momentum is starting to subside. RSI is in the bearish control zone, and same thing with theta, right? We are falling apart. You're down to 91 cents. Our important level to hold was just below $1, and we wanted to see that happen. It would make sense that we pull back to about 80 cents here. It makes perfect sense to me. And depending on how Bitcoin affects these alts and if or when it falls apart, you could potentially see even lower prices. You could potentially see something like 57 cents. Would make complete sense because that is your May 20 high, as well as your August 2020 high, as well as support from November 2020 multiple times. Honestly, this would be the move, and we're going to draw it in because we're going to predict that Bitcoin's going to tank and take all these with them for the short term. Okay. Ideally, we would like to see this do something like this level at 80 cents. Definitely don't want to get to 70 cents because then you'd be making a lower low than this low, which would be pretty bad to see. However, it would make perfect sense to see that 57 cent level retested and potentially continue higher off of that, spring off of that at least. Would be a very low risk entry in my opinion. Even if we get down to that 71 level, very low risk. Anyways, let's do crypto first and then we'll get to stocks. Chili's has been looking okay. Obviously right now it's not looking the greatest. However, you still are putting in higher lows, right? Like, the only thing I don't like about this is you're rolling over right now. You're putting in lower highs as well. So it's starting to look bearish like everything else. XRP falling back into that parallel channel of no escape that it was in for a very long time. You can see it wants to make moves. It starts to, but then there is someone that is willing to sell this into oblivion every single time. And it makes sense because I think there is a lot of XRP supply that is sitting in certain people's hands that they, every time they see it go up, are very incentivized to sell it. I do think this is going to have a heyday at some point, have a nice rally. However, I don't think that time is now, and I believe you are going to pull down to the bottom of this parallel channel. If not, this green demand line that we have that dates back to March of 2020. Okay. Did that. XLM, we were saying, was poised for a nice reversal here. You were at the 618. You're touching it right now. I would like to see it. Don't think it's going to happen. And realistically, I think we're pulling back to the 82 cent level. Or I'm sorry, 8.2 cents. What do I think we'll do from there? I think that's deep enough to continue higher. Just drawing these ideas to see how they play out, right? One of the things I've liked about Amazon is we drew this back from February, pull back, and a spring back test of this support line, and ever since then it's kind of been following our plan. So kind of cool to just draw what we think is going to play out and see if that's the case. Which one do we want? Binance? No, I do this every time with Doge, and I just need to get this squared away. Doge is looking like that price is just getting crunched and crunched and crunched, right? What's going on here? We good on the live stream? We still live? Yes, we are. Okay. All right. Looking like that price is getting crunched and crunched and crunched. Let me open something up here. I can't watch that. Okay, we're gonna skip it for now. I'm going to flag this and open that up later. Okay. Anyways, looking a little more bullish than most. I like that this is just kind of consolidating here. Your Jesus. What's going on? You're still putting in higher lows, which is good. Your higher highs, they're waning, right? RSI reset, MACD negative momentum, but very marginal as well. I don't like the volume on this, but it's also on Bittrex, which is borderline going under right now. At least for US customers, it's done. Let's look first BTC and see how it's performing against BTC. Interesting. Different picture, right? Different picture where you're saying like, okay, we could be putting in a double bottom at this point, right? And you could potentially be seeing a nice reversal at these levels. Definitely want to get above that 285 Satoshi level. That's a pretty critical level. And right now you're at the high from when is it? January of 2021. Interesting. It's interesting how these pairs versus BTC sometimes paint an entirely different picture. Okay, we are going to switch to the very few stocks that we take a look at as well. I did drop a link to the Discord in the chat. Please feel free to hop on in there. Be happy to have you. Happy to talk some crypto. Happy to talk some charts and whatnot. Okay, continuing on. I'm going to blast through some of these stocks here. GE continuing to be a very nice trade that we have made. Inverted head and shoulders that we caught off this important level. The $36. And we like to zoom out on this. $36.61 support, which also dates back to the support of February 09 and support from September of 1992. Also coincides with a resistance test in July of 1990. Ever since that inverted head and shoulders broke that neckline, we've just been on a nice bullish streak, and our measured move is potentially a 56% gain up to the $130 mark. We're just doing fantastic with this, and it just keeps on ripping and ripping and ripping. However, we do have that green descending supply line that I think could potentially cut our profits short and might make that $130 level be the top, if not marginally above that, and potentially see a pullback after that. Anyways, not only did we have GE that's doing well, we also have Amazon that's doing pretty well. And there was a lot of indicators that we were looking at to say, we think this is a pretty bullish chart, even though the macro environment is pretty shitty. You do have this potential broadening wedge where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches on this wedge. Then you had an inverted head and shoulders up here. Your measured move is about 22% to the upside after that. Your measured move on the broadening wedge is a 67% gain. And you're also caught this inverted head and shoulders at this important level, this important support level at $80.50, give or take some pennies, where your previous support back in March of 2020, as well as resistance test in March of 2018, and multiple touches along the way. Like, this is a pretty important level that it should be reversing at, and it did reverse at, so important to see. And then your range for that, right? So your top range, we were saying, is 101.57, where it's coinciding to these reversal touches. We're breaking out above that and back testing that as support is exactly what you want to do before it should spring you up higher. And that's exactly what we're waiting for, exactly what seems to be panning out. And you got a nice bullish hammer candle right here painting itself on the weekly. When does this baby close? Eighth of May. So tomorrow, tonight, nice bullish hammer candle. Bullish hammer candle. There you go. Beautiful. Anyways, let's continue on with looking at our stocks. Intel. Starting to look like it's picking up, right? You just have multiple touches of this important level at $25, right? $25.50, where this is identified as a pretty important level, right? It's so many touches along, dating back to resistance touch of July 1997. I almost said 2097, but most recently as support from August 15th before having this nice run to the upside. This is one we were identifying because we're waiting for US investment in repatriating silicon chip manufacturing stuff. So we're waiting to see that dollar amount start to trickle in, and we were identifying it bouncing off these important levels multiple times, 1, 2, 3 times, and having a breakout of those levels. We did a fib from a conservative high to this low, and you broke above the 236, meaning it's a valid fib. However, you pulled back after that, and now you're springing up again. Let's zoom into a higher time frame so we can see. Your low to high, you're bouncing off the 618, it looks like, which is exactly where you'd expect to see a reversal. Actually, it didn't even get down to the 618. So that's a little bit bullish, right? You like to see that, where it didn't even get down to that level and it's continuing to stair step higher again. You got a nice little boom, 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 starting to break out of that boom, boom, boom. Starting to look better as we go. Higher lows every time. You are putting in lower highs on the smaller time frame, but I don't think that's much to worry about. Like, you had a pretty massive run, then a pullback to that 618-ish, and you're starting to stair step your way back up. Definitely want to get above 3150. That's your level you want to start breaking above. coincides with your local highs. Does it also coincide with anything else? Not really. So not super critical, but you definitely want it to break above that to show that it's continuing on. Okay, we're gonna take a look at a couple more here. PAA, this is an interesting one. So I'm gonna zoom out and we'll start with the whole case here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nice Elliott wave, nice market condition, and this chart's dating back to 1998, right, where you just had boom, 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 very easily identified. Then you had a nice ABC correction. Then you had this nice wedge forming at the bottom of that, right? And this bottom coincides with the bottom from December 1999. You're starting to build this consolidation, this tightening of this wedge, tightening of the wedge. You're breaking out of it to the upside, but then you're falling back in, saying you don't have enough strength, retesting the bottom of that wedge, and then breaking out again to the upside, falling back in on the closer time frames, right? Falling back in, here, but then just immediately breaking out. And look at this volume coming in now. This is exactly what you want to see when you're breaking out of a formation like this. This one looks good. I like it. EOSE. What a pullback they had. Down to the 786 on that from the low to the high, but showing that it's starting to rebuild after. Oh, John. God, I need a hotkey for this. For the move thing. Pulling back to that 786, bouncing off that, pulling above the 200 day. Yes, we are above the 200 day. Looking fantastic, right? Like you are just building and building and building and building. It's okay to see a pullback of that magnitude off a nice 245% run. You are going to see that sometimes. Okay, continuing on. MOS, this is the last one we're going to look at. We're saying maybe we're starting to form a descending wedge, right? Descending wedge pattern, which is typically a bullish pattern, right? And you would see this happen where you're getting a nice run up and then it starts falling apart and consolidating, and then breaking out to the upside. However, this one is just consolidating, falling apart. Don't like to see it. Don't like to see that you broke down to the downside on this. Not looking too juicy. Okay. Any other ones? Any other requests? Let me open up YouTube. I don't even have this damn thing open. Nope, no requests. So that is it. I appreciate you if you're watching. If you are, leave a comment below. I'd be happy to hear from you. Happy to know that someone got this far in the video. In fact, if you did, it might be a little prize